All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Shadows Podcast. I am your host, Trip Bodenheimer, and today I have with me Mindi Trimble. Trimble? Did I pronounce it right?
Trimble. That's it.
I
That's
don't
it.
know
Like
why I felt
thimble.
like so if I were to go back and listen to past episodes, I my fear is saying someone's name wrong, and I struggle with saying names right all the time. So
You that was flawless. That was awesome. And I like to say it's like thimble with an R, but some people do say tremble. They do. And it's not
okay,
tremble, it's trimble. So yeah, you got
okay,
it.
got it right, got it right. And you are the I like this description here, the bubble wrap of life and college coaching. And
Yes.
we will unpack all of that. And I
Hmm.
mean, I connected with you, uh, gosh, what, maybe like 2, 3 weeks ago
Yeah.
for the first time. Great conversation. I
Hmm.
had so much fun talking. I don't even think we talked about half of what we were anticipating talking about,
No.
but it was just I mean, amazing connection to have. I can't thank you enough for taking time to do this. But for our listeners out there, where are you located?
Yeah, I am in California, just about 30, 40 minutes outside of downtown Los Angeles. Basically adjacent to, I guess, the former home of Kim and Kanye over in
Okay.
Calabasas there. So yeah, that's where I
We
am.
are By the time this episode comes out, you and I are going to be neighbors.
I know. And I was going to say we're going to be neighbors, so you are no stranger to bubble wrap and all of its joys and wonders, I'm sure, as you're
Oh
packing up.
yeah,
So,
I'm very
yes.
much looking forward to connecting with you in person when we get down there.
Yes.
But before we get going here, I want to put you through some rapid fire questions.
I'm ready. Okay.
First
Let's do it.
one, book recommendation.
So I thought about this because like when you were kind of priming me for this one, I was choosing between, but I right now I am reading Everything is Figure Outable by Marie Forleo. And I've been in her orbit for a while. I took her class Time Genius at the end of last year, which is amazing. But Everything is Figure Outable is so fantastic because, like, I mean, every time I'm kind of listening and reading, and I feel like the inspiration I get just in my own life and for my students. And I mean, everything is figure outable is a great motto. And it's really like what I'm doing with my students every step of the way, all the way to the end of the college application and acceptance. So
Okay. Everything is figure outable. That'll be under our resource recommendations on our
mhm.
website. You have one ticket. You can travel anywhere right now. Where would you go?
Right now, I would go to Switzerland with my family because my husband is super into genealogy and he's been doing a lot of digging into our ancestry, and we've discovered a lot of members of the family from that area. And I've been once, but it was only a brief period, and I really want to go back. And I have 4.5-year-old twin boys, and I want them to see that. And I know my
Yeah.
husband would be thrilled to go and kind of do more research. So I think that would be an amazing trip to take.
Specific spot in Switzerland?
Gosh, Interlaken, because I've not been there, and I
Yeah.
know that that is where a lot of the family is from. So yes,
Yeah.
and
It's
actually my maiden name is German. Bodenheimer sounds German to me,
okay.
and
Yeah.
he's learning German, so it would be great. I can pronounce it because of my singing days, but I can't speak it. So it would be fun to kind of get by with broken German.
Brecken say English was my favorite quote. I was I told my wife, I was like, when we would go somewhere like out and about shopping, I was like, I'm gonna fool them. They're gonna think I'm German because they'll see my ID with my last name. And then the few little quotes that I knew I could get by with
Hmm.
checking out at a register.
Hmm.
And I'd leave. I'm like, they don't even know that I'm American. She's like, I'm pretty sure they do.
Pretty sure
Um,
they do. Pretty
yeah,
sure they do. Yep. Wait, have you been to Switzerland?
I have.
Oh,
I've
whereabouts?
been to, so Lucerne,
Hmm.
love it. We drove through the Alps and it was
Hmm.
incredible. I mean, just absolutely amazing. But everything is really expensive,
Yes.
really, really expensive. It
Yeah.
is no joke. But
It
I
would need to be an all expenses paid trip. That's my asterisk on that question. Yeah, not if I'm not paying, there we go. If I am paying, it's going to be somewhere else.
I personally like Austria. I love Austria.
Oh, I've not been to Austria either.
Beautiful, beautiful. Next question for you. And I'm very curious with your music background to ask you
Mm-hmm.
this one. What is your that one artist or one song that if anybody else were to know you're listening to it, you would turn your music down, or you would, when you pull up to the red light, you tend to turn it down a little bit. What's that one that you'd be embarrassed if people knew you heard?
The one, I don't know if it's embarrassing, the song itself, but I think like I sing it so loud, is the song To Be Real. And I don't even know the artist. I don't, but I'm not going to sing it here on the podcast for you right now, but you can go look it up. To Be Real. It's like 70s jam. There's a lot of loud kind of screamy parts, and I love to sing it. So yes, I would be turning down my own volume and the volume on my radio. So that,
Cheryl Lynn.
no, that's it. Did you already know that? You
I
did. You
Googled
knew
it.
that. You didn't even have to look it up.
Just Googled it.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
There we go.
But I'll edit it to where it'll just sound like I knew
Okay.
it. Next
Yep,
one
that's
for you.
it. Mm-hmm.
Pet peeve.
Pet peeve. Oh, pet peeve. Oh goodness. My pet peeve actually is when I hear uh people correct someone's grammar in public anywhere. Because I'm working with students on college essays, and I'm a total, grammar aficionado, and like, I'm all about it. And so I hear people make mistakes constantly in speech, but it's the way that we talk. We're not. So when somebody corrects someone's grammar, I'm just like, oh, you got to be kidding me. It's so know-it-all and rude. And sometimes I will hear people make corrections that are actually incorrect. So that's another level. Pet peeve.
Yeah.
I just
I
gotta.
have, I have a
Yeah.
coworker that does that, and I call him out on it a lot. Yeah.
No one needs to
Yeah.
know it all. Not like
Thank you,
that. It's
Merriam-Webster. Yeah.
right. It's like, you know what? If I wanted to find out, I would have Googled it. So thank
It's
you for
like they
the.
don't understand the way you said it, so they have to they say it like, "Did you mean that?" I'm like, "No,
Oh yeah. Oh, that's the worst. Yes. Oh,
you got me. Yeah.
good call. Good call.
All right.
Mhm.
Dinner for three historical figures who are no longer with us. Who do you break bread with?
Yes, three historical figures that are no longer with us. I would have to say, so one is Francois Premier, who was one of the former kings of France, and this is an answer that I'm whipping out from an interview that I had in high school, and I stand by it because he was committed to this kind of beautification of the country. And I just always have this weird affinity uh, for him. I think also I would want to have this opera singer who has an amazing voice, Montserrat Caballé, just absolutely amazing voice. She's no longer with us. I would absolutely love to be at dinner with her and pick her brain about singing. And my third historical figure, gosh, just for funsies, because it's totally, I would be an eclectic mix. I would have to say Martin Luther King Jr. I mean, I think that's a really interesting mix of cultures
Oh,
and time periods. So I would like to see the conversation as a result.
I tell you right now, two of those three, first time somebody's invited them to dinner for three. So
I'm not surprised. People are going to be like, who is this woman? I'm getting out Google. Why is she making me look stuff up? Yeah. But yeah,
I
that's
couldn't
it.
even Google those names, but yeah. So we've gone through the rapid fires.
Mm-hmm.
You survived those. Now I want to get into your story. And if you could take us back to what was childhood like for Mindy?
Yeah. So I was born in Bakersfield, California. And my dad is an oil and gas attorney, which is why we lived in Bakersfield, because there's a lot of crude oil there. Interestingly enough, when I went and got my music degree, a couple decades later, I lived in Signal Hill, California, which is near Long Beach.
Hmm.
and it's also known for crude oil. It's weird. It's like I'm oil attracts me, I suppose. But in any event, I grew up in Bakersfield, very flat, very hot, and it is a very it's very like a politically conservative kind of stronghold in the state. They, you know, there's, I mean, it's very much like it's almost like a piece of the Midwest because I think apparently, let's go back to history, like a lot of people came during like the Dust Bowl and migrated out. And so like the weather and climate was similar and all that stuff. So that's where I grew up. And I went to a Quaker school. I was raised in a Quaker church when I was little, and I went to a Quaker school until third grade. And that was interesting. It was modern. Some people have this idea that of Quakers wearing like plain clothes. It's not so much the traditional Quakers, but uh, you know, more of it's kind of more of a philosophy of they're committed. There's like the American Friends Service Committee, so it's very much like a denomination that's rooted in service and faith, like being intertwined. And yeah, and then we moved to another valley town, and yeah, and I was really interested in the arts, and that's when I started performing a lot, and yeah, and I continued to do that all through high school, and then went off to college and did something a little bit different, but eventually made my way back to performing.
Do you
So
remember when during your childhood the arts kind of sparked that interest in you?
yeah, I started performing in, church musicals. I think I was 3 or 5, and I told my mom, Mom, I don't want to be a TV star. I want to be an actress. Like kind of delineated that. I was like, I want
Yes.
to be a stage performer. It's different, it had more gravitas or something, right? So I loved the idea of the lights and the applause and the attention, and I loved singing, and so it was a very early age.
Any stage fright or anything initially? Or were you just a
No,
natural?
no. I mean, I still, well, actually, this is a really cute story. So I do remember some of my first performances, and I, had those nerves. I was like, Mom, my stomach feels all fluttery. What is this? I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
She said, Oh, honey, those are called butterflies. I was like, What? I was young enough. I remember being like, What are you talking about? She's like, No, not actual butterflies, but she said the cool thing is that all you have to do is teach those butterflies to fly in formation. I was like, oh. And so I use that visualization of like all these fluttering butterflies, and then that's how I calm myself down. I would make them go in a V or a Z, or I'm sure there's actual terms for that in Air Force terminology you can help me out with. But yeah, that was how my mom taught me to regulate my nerves, and I would just breathe it in. And then
You mentioned your mom. What did your mom do?
my mom, she stayed at home with us until we were about 13, and then she had a background in gosh, she worked for a travel agency and customer service, and then she went back and worked at a car dealership, and she also worked with young people with a company called Junior Achievement. And then she went on, before she retired, she was working in for a small like health insurance group in healthcare. So yeah, she's kind of worked in customer service and HR. But yeah, having my mom at home until I was 13 was amazing.
Yeah. You said she worked with kids with junior achievement. Do you think that kind of planted any seeds for what you're doing today?
Until I said it just now, no, I hadn't actually ever made that connection, which is funny. And I should talk to her about it. Yeah, and actually, she also worked for, this was more on the medical side for like a child guidance clinic. And so these were
Hmm.
students that had more like behavioral issues. But so she was also attracted to working with young people. And we've never actually had that conversation. Yeah, so maybe it's in my blood. There you go. Because
Something to
my
talk about
dad,
next
yeah,
time.
yeah, my dad taught for a while also. So,
Yeah. Well, you mentioned too, he was in Vietnam, correct?
he was, and he does not talk about it much. All the only thing that I know is that he does not like Bob Hope, because he had to be on watch during like the USO holiday
Oh
special
yeah,
while Pope was entertaining the troops. So
that
he
was
was
his
like,
thing.
yep, yeah, my dad, my dad didn't get to see it, isn't a fan. I guess it just reminds him of that time. So,
It's funny you say that because, I've been big on teaching emotional intelligence
mhm,
and being on this emotional growth journey. One of the things I really look at is generational, I guess you could say it's generational trauma, but it's
sure.
just basically how that Vietnam style of like leadership or veterans, it was almost like a badge of honor to where it's like they never cried, they never talked about it. And you have so many veterans that I hear people who say that my grandfather or my father served, but I never knew what they did. They just never talked about it, or they never shed a tear. And I remember I'd always hear people say like, oh, that such a man, they never cried, they never did any of that. But now a lot more of like emotions and stories and stuff are being told. um do you think there's any like sort of, not trauma from Vietnam, but do you
Mhm.
think your dad has lived with any sort of like baggage from that time in the military?
100%. Yes, I do. And I think the fact that he hasn't been forthcoming, and I haven't pushed a lot, but
Yeah, yeah,
I can remember one or two times where I was a little bit more direct and he deflected and so I backed off.
yeah,
Um but yeah, I think that it's probably been really hard for him to reconcile that, like
yeah.
with his life before and after. Um and yeah, it's, on the one hand, it's a shame that, that is kind of the hand that was dealt our, our veterans returning home from that war. But I am glad to see, people like you that are in the military today that are promoting social emotional intelligence and communicating those feelings as a way to process traumatic events, right? Because, you know, I feel like in my dad's case, he probably doesn't even consciously recognize some of it as trauma when that's exactly what it is. So I don't know
Okay.
who knows what it is, but yes, I do.
Yeah. Did you have any siblings, or were you only child?
I do have siblings. So I have an older half brother who's 10 years older than me, and he lives in Fountain Valley, which is in Orange County. And I've got two nieces. He's married, yeah, with his two daughters there. And then I have a younger brother who also lives in Orange County, a different part, Laguna Beach area, and he has two little boys. And so we're all kind of close together.
Yeah, we're all in that California area.
Yes. No, I didn't grow up with my half brother. He
Yeah.
visited a lot, but it was at home. It was me and my little brother. Yeah.
So with us moving to California,
Yes.
what's the biggest misconception about living in California?
Geez. The biggest misconception. I mean, there's a lot of stereotypes that are true. I will say that, like, the Saturday Night Live sketches about the way that people talk about the freeways is 100.
Californians, yeah,
Yes,
it's a great
100%.
skit.
It's so funny. It's so funny, and no, none of the actors can get through it with a straight face because it's
No,
real.
yeah.
So, but I think the misconception.
I do know
I
when I
think
went down there to visit, I checked
yes,
out price. Everybody said prices are through the roof on everything. And I went to like Target and
yeah,
Walmart here, looked at the prices of like cereal, milk.
hmm
When I got to California, they were the exact same.
yeah. I think that is a
Yes.
good one. Big box stores are big box stores, right? And I do think yes, gas is more expensive, but aside from like real estate prices, which are bonkers, I don't think like the actual cost of living, like your day to day basic needs, is any higher. I also think that there's this misconception like the weather's great all the time. I mean, California is a humongous state, so it depends on where you go, and the weather is not great all the time. I mean, it's getting hotter here. The fires, like I didn't grow up with those fires. I mean, it's gotten
Scary.
a lot worse. And it's not earthquakes all the time either. I barely felt any earthquakes. I've lived here my
That's
entire
probably a big
life.
one.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest one is that people are like, oh,
Yeah.
it's earthquakes all the time. I'm like, I've slept through almost all of them. So,
I watched the documentary on one of the wildfires. I think
mhm.
it was on Netflix, but it was the one where basically they were, gosh, where was it? I want to say it was like 2019. I could be wrong on that date, but they basically were trapped um, uh, like everybody in the street in the car, you were being
Mm,
told get out of your car and just go.
yeah, yeah.
And
That
they
was
were
probably pretty,
surrounded by
yeah.
fire. Very scary.
Yeah, it was scary. It was a scary time. I remember. I mean, that was my boys turned 1 in October of 2019, and we had to cancel the party because they closed down the freeways and no one could get to us. And we picked our house based on evacuation histories.
Yeah, that's
So
smart.
we're like, this is the best place to pick because it actually hasn't been evacuated. So that
Yeah.
is real.
Oh, and then everybody's saying when I've told people we're moving out there, they're like, "But
Mhm.
it's just gonna fall into the ocean."
No. Okay,
Yeah.
that's gonna happen to New Orleans before it's gonna happen to us.
Yeah.
So no, no.
Okay. So now you went to college, but talk to us about your college journey because that was kind of unique with the where you ended up.
Yeah, yeah. So I, out of high school, I did my undergraduate degree at UC Berkeley. So I started there in 1999, and that was a really interesting time to be in college, particularly with my degree. My degree is in peace and conflict studies. So us going to war, Iraq. You know, it was a really wild time to be on the UC
Yeah.
Berkeley campus. Um, and I studied abroad in France from 2000 to 2001. So, or was it 2000? No, sorry about that. That was 2001, 2002. So I was also there. I left on August 25th. And so a couple weeks later, right, we have September 11th, and I was there in France for another like 8 months. And that was a very interesting time to be an American
How was that in
abroad.
France?
What was so interesting, because I know a lot of people have memories of like freedom fries and the stuff that came a lot later, but
Yeah.
the French people were so kind to me. And I mean, because my French got better, and my French wasn't bad, but French people can hear that you're an English speaker, and
Yeah.
French people are very proud of their language abilities, and so they don't really want, like, my impression was like if they weren't super fluent, they didn't want to speak English. They would speak in French to you if you could speak any bit of French. But everyone that I met that could barely speak any English would try to say, "How is your family?" It was like the first question people would ask me, and it was so touching. And I said, "Well, I'm from California, and I actually don't have any, but thank you so much for asking." And so, it kind of all blew for the different story. Now, I know some weird things happened. Like, one day I walked out of my apartment and straight into the barrel of a semi-automatic weapon because there was armed military around. So that was unusual, not something that would have happened on the Berkeley campus, or at least that I know of, or at home in Bakersfield. So there were some interesting kind of cognitive dissonant kind of moments there, but yeah, I mean, I think that was weird. It was just kind of over, and yet it was continuing for my family and friends back home.
Did you switch majors while you were at
So
Berkeley?
no. So at Berkeley, I thought I was going in as music, but in my first month, I learned about the peace and conflict studies major. And I decided that that was definitely what I wanted to major in. And I thought I might minor in music, but I didn't. I ended up minoring in French. And I really thought I was gonna, go and get, an advanced degree in either translation, and I was looking into, working for the UN or working for the State Department. Um, but then my parents divorced, actually while I was abroad in France. So when
Hmm.
I came home to a different house, a different, like a whole different set of circumstances. And so my plans changed pretty quickly when I got home.
I mean, you're still considered a kid at that point. How
Yeah.
was your mindset of coming home and all of a sudden your whole entire worldview has just changed?
Yeah. I mean, like, our country had changed, my world, like,
Yeah.
everything had changed. And I remember, I think one of the most vivid memories that I have was when I came back, and it was summer, right? When I came back from France. And I remember going to a grocery store for the first time. And I had not ever had a panic attack prior to that. I didn't know that was what I had when I was having it, but I went into a grocery store, And I remember seeing the number of options of bread, loaves of bread, like on this giant, aisle. And I was completely overwhelmed. And
Yeah.
I had to walk out and go home. And learned later through therapy and talking to people that what I had experienced was a panic attack, because I had to calm myself down in the car. I think that actually, when I came back, that was kind of the beginning of my journey. I went and I sought out student services. I needed help to get through that time, for obvious reasons. So I think I'm grateful that my parents encouraged me to do that, because prior to that point, I had never, talked to a therapist or anything like that. So yeah, it was definitely helpful and helped me navigate that period into, you know, graduation and into the real world.
Can I ask you the same question that I asked you
Sure.
about California? What do you think is the biggest misconception about counseling or seeing a therapist?
I think that some of the misconceptions that I hear, and I don't know how strong these stereotypes still are, that it's like, you know, you don't need a therapist, you can talk to your friends.
Yeah.
But and sometimes I still even have friends who are like, oh, you don't need to talk, or you can just talk to me. And it's like, well, yeah, except that, like, the thing about therapy is that they are a paid objective observer, right? So your friends are never objective,
Yeah.
and they're not trained, and they're not trained in the foundations of different psychological theories and different schools of thought, and
And how they
um
listen.
right, and how exactly how they listen. That objective listening, and still holding you with unconditional positive regard, and all of this. Like, I think that's probably one of the biggest misconceptions. And the second one is that, like, that it represents that there's something wrong, like that there's a weakness in you, or there's something wrong with you. And I've been really, really glad to see over the last, 5 to 10 years, maybe, that, when I see phrases, about mental health is health, like,
Mhm.
I have no problem, you know, it doesn't, I have no problem talking about therapy, or, that I've gone in and out of therapy at different points in my life. Sometimes you need some outside help. Sometimes you're sore, sometimes something hurts, right? You go to the
Yeah.
doctor. So it's the same to me. So,
In the military, we have the social, spiritual, emotional,
mhm,
and physical domains. And I talk about it on here a lot about how, uh, physically, you get a personal trainer, you get a
mhm,
workout partner, you go to the
that's right.
gym, we take selfies, we celebrate it. I was in there today, and Planet Fitness is doing the high schoolers workout for free. So it's just selfie central. And but they're all in there celebrating and videotaping everything they do. And
Mhm,
then you got your spiritual side where
mhm,
we go to church, we celebrate that. We have no shame in, posting things on social media, even meditating or sitting out
mhm.
with the cup of coffee out by the mountains of the
Right.
Swiss Alps with the book.
That
And
sounds great. Yeah.
it actually does. Yeah. But the crazy thing is, though, when it comes to like that emotional
Right.
state, is that if we tell people like, oh, I got it, I want to get a trainer for my
Mhm,
mind. I want to go talk to someone for my mind. It's frowned upon.
right.
And then when I think about it from like a logical standpoint, that doesn't make any sense because
No,
why
no.
not?
Right, exactly. Like, somehow my choice to go to a therapist means I'm unstable, which is when it's actually the opposite. It's like I am seeking stability. I have a certain amount of awareness that I am in a state of instability, and I am
Yeah.
looking to go get some equilibrium back. Like, I
But you
actually
work on
think
your glutes and your abs, and that's
that's
okay. But
right.
you work on your
Yep.
mind, and it's like, oh,
Yep. I'm going to work
it's
on my brain glutes, I guess.
yeah, brain
Yeah,
glutes. There you go.
brain glutes. There's a quote for the day, brain glutes.
So talk to us about your opera degree.
Yeah. So I, like I said, I had already been studying voice in high school, and I thought that I was going to go to UC Berkeley. And my initial thought was, okay, I'm going to get a poli sci and music double major. And I got to Berkeley, and I was it was a lot. It was a lot to pursue a double major, and also the music program there was very front loaded, and
Yeah.
the classes were really difficult. I was not prepared for the music theory courses. And so I thought, okay, I'm gonna dial that back, but I still want to take voice lessons. And so I paid out of pocket. It was not cheap, but I paid out of pocket. It was so important for me to maintain the voice lessons. And I had a lovely voice teacher, Vina Restel. She's wonderful, wonderful human. And you know, I kept doing it all through college. And then I graduated and I was working at a law firm at the time. And, I thought, well, should I still continue with these voice lessons? Yeah. And I still did it. And then I actually switched jobs and I worked for Lonely Planet. They're a travel guidebook publisher. And that was an interesting job because I literally one day thought, wouldn't it be cool if, and this is a big Marie Forleo question, but I actually had that thought. I was like, wouldn't it be cool if I worked for Lonely Planet? I have an interdisciplinary degree. It's in peace and conflict studies. It's a very international degree. It was in the international and area studies umbrella at the time. And so I typed in on Craigslist, that's showing my age here again. I put Lonely Planet. And the first hit that comes up was Lonely Planet marketing assistant. It was literally the job written for me. It was what I wanted. So I busted out my What Color is Your Parachute book? And it was like, hot tip, pro tip, go hand your resume in person. Can you even imagine? 21-year-old doing that a day.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm going to do one better. I'm going to put it in a clear envelope where you have like the twisty tie around it so
Yeah.
that they don't even have to open it. They can just look at my resume straight through, right? Here it is. But yeah, I like to say that's a piece of evidence where I feel like I manifested that job for myself. I visualized it. I went in there. I did everything I could and I got that job and it was a wonderful job. But it was in that job and I loved it. I loved it so much. I was one of the youngest members of the Lonely Planet Foundation. I got to help decide where we were spending money. There was, the tsunami in Sri Lanka. It was just all these incredible opportunities for me, but I still had that pull towards music. And that it was there that I decided, you know what? All these people around me all the time are talking about living their travel dreams. And I will regret it if I don't do this. So I decided I had to go back to school and pursue, my bachelor's in music. So I got the second bachelor's and eventually got my master's in music as well.
Was that at Berkeley also?
No, that was at Cal State Long Beach.
Okay.
And Cal State Long Beach, and actually while I was at Cal State Long Beach, they actually officially became, like, their music department became a recognized conservatory. It's the Bob Cole Conservatory of Music, and the vocal program is outstanding. The coaches I had were just amazing. And, I couldn't have asked for a better experience. And, USC is recognized as, one of the premier music institutions there. And I also got into USC, but I was paying for it at this point. I already had a degree, so it was all on me.
Yeah.
And so, Long Beach made a lot more sense. And the teacher that I studied with for part of the time, she taught at USC and Long Beach. And so that's why I chose Long Beach. And I'm so glad I did. Go Beach.
So you've got your mentoring program now, but before we
Yeah.
get to that, how did you, like, if we were to fill in the gap between graduating where you are now, what did your career look like in between for that entrepreneurship?
Right. So between that, I graduated from my master's program and I started hustling and doing the audition circuit. But I also, the entire time I was in grad school, or excuse me, getting my second degree and in grad school, I became a standardized test prep instructor because I had heard from a guy that I went to Cal with who was a trumpeter. That was what he was doing while he was out gigging in New York and auditioning in New York. And he said, "Hey, Mindy, the money's so great. And I think you could do it. You're good at all this stuff." And so that's what I did. I worked for Revolution Prep for over 10 years. And so, I was kind of, living my dual life, doing in-person workshops and things, but also, flying to New York and auditioning around Southern California. And, I was performing in with regional companies. I did travel a bit. I got to sing at one point. I got to sing at Westminster Abbey as a soloist, which was amazing. You know, I kind of got my taste of the opera singer life,
Yeah.
and you know, I continued to, you know, I was doing that here and there, and then, you know, I mean, yeah, I was really still trying to pursue that career up until I got pregnant with my kids, and they were born in 2018. And you know, I thought we got to 2020, and I'm like, 2020, I'm getting back into it, right? And then March happened, and yeah, but you know, at that point, I had officially started my business, so I was still kind of planning on this dual life
Yeah.
up until 2020, and then the, you know,
That
the
was the time to do
stage.
YouTube videos.
Yeah, you know, and I did some. I didn't do YouTube videos. I did some, you know, online projects, but I think, you know, what was the best part about 2020 for me was the amount of reflection, because it really,
Yes.
you know, life got in the way, and then I was like, okay, you know, let me look at what I loved and didn't love about trying to become an opera singer. And I'll tell you this really quick story. So I was auditioning for LA Opera, and you know, I prepped and prepped and prepped. But you know, I still had on. We're still wearing pantyhose to auditions. I don't think anyone does that anymore. So much changes in just a couple of years, but thank goodness that's a change. But I'm singing this aria, and I feel the elastic waistband of my pantyhose. It's not holding, and my pantyhose starts sliding down. And I'm trying, you know, I'm singing this really hard aria that I put so much work into, and I'm just like, I can't believe this is happening. And you know, that the kind of hustle and grind
Yeah.
that I had been working at, it was just, that was not what I wanted. And that, I don't know, that moment was pivotal for me, because that is not what I was out there to do. It's like so much is writing on this 5-minute thing, and there's so much rejection. But here I was having all of these moments that did make my heart sing, seeing kids, you know, kind of have this realization about what they wanted to do, or see their whole life story in a different light. That was amazing. And you know, I was having a lot more of those winning moments in my coaching than I was, you know, in the audition room. So I thought, you know, I think I'm going to switch gears and just make this my new stage. So that's how I went full throttle into my online coaching and educational consulting business.
So before we get into that, looking back at your journey up to this point,
Mhm.
what would you say is that shadow moment in your life where it was something that was holding you down and you finally like had to just embrace it and make it part of your story and kind of use that to propel forward?
I mean, I think it is that. I think it is that moment that, you know, once
The
I
pantyhose.
really, the pantyhose moment. Yeah. I mean, it didn't fall past the hem of my dress, but there were once I really thought about that and how I felt in that moment, you know, I kind of saw this in my mind that year when we were all at home. I saw this montage of other moments where, you know, just many, like what I had considered them like personal failures, but you know, I saw them in a different light. I saw them like, okay, this is kind of the the universe telling you like there's something not quite right about this path that I'm on.
Yeah.
And specifically during the pandemic year, I remember reading this quote. Um, it was from an assigned reading in my freshman year class in my Peace and Conflict Studies 100 class, assigned to me, and it was an article written in 1998 about, you know, Confucianism and Eastern and Western philosophy and how it applied to human rights. I mean, it was just it was about a particular unit. I don't remember really any other part of the article, but what stuck out to me and what was ringing through my head was this quote that you know, the author was Tu Wei Ming, and he said, um, you know, it was a principle of Confucianism that I am a center of relationships, and that my own human flourishing necessitates that I involve myself in the spirit of empathy, to be sure, in the affairs of others. And that was the piece that was missing from the singing, right? Is that, yes, like I was hoping that my performances were causing people to feel things and process things, but I I am better in a, responsive and collaborative situation. I feed off of other people's energy, and I needed to be talking to people in a more intimate way and working with people in a more intimate way than on a stage. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
that you brought up about like the universe giving me those signs. And when I read Val Kilmer's autobiography, he
Hmm.
said a quote that I just absolutely love: "The universe's rejection is the universe's protection." And
Wow,
yeah, so when things
that's
like that
great.
happen, it's them telling you like this is where you need to go. And speaking of where you need to go, to all of our listeners, is your website. Because
Thank you. Yes.
I mean, college prep mentor, I mean, where in the world were you when I was trying to
Well,
go to school?
we weren't around because this
Yeah.
job didn't even exist until maybe
Right.
15 years ago because it's all changed. I mean, so much has changed since that time, and there's so many more applicants, and there's so many more things that students have to focus on in order to raise their profile and get put in the yes pile. So that's why people like me are around.
So first of all, tell our listeners about your website, because I know you have like events, webinars. You've got
Sure.
some really good stuff. Very good. I always appreciate a very good looking website. You have that.
Thank you.
So yeah, just let our listeners know what all they can find if they're on your site.
Yes. So you can find my links to my socials. I'm most active on Instagram. So if you're on Instagram, please come up. But I am also on Facebook. So come over and say hello. I am a vocal human. So you can rest assured that you will get a DM, especially if
No
you,
AI.
huh?
No AI.
No AI. Yes, you will get a DM from me, and most likely it will be a voice memo, especially if you're in there saying hello from this podcast. But also, you can find details under events and webinars. I am going to be doing my kind of signature speech, which is called Get Majorly Determined, and that's going to be on September 30th, and it is virtual, and it is a fundraiser for Opulent Mobility, which is dedicated to increased accessibility and kind of the intersection of accessibility in the arts and raising the profile of individuals struggling with being seen and having disabilities. And then also, it's a partial fundraiser for the nonprofit that I'm on the board of, which is called I Am Aria, and it's dedicated to teen mental health and wellness. So,
Wow.
yeah, so I'm going to be talking about my Get Majorly Determined framework. And uh, if you miss that one, there's other ones coming up, and everything will be there. Events and webinars is the best place to figure out how you can catch me live or just hang out on Instagram. But yeah, I really think I feel like my special sauce is helping introduce students to majors they've never heard of, and in doing so, kind of fuels this transformation and perspective shift of how they can get through high school with more purpose and intention, and get to college and do it successfully.
You're looking at my demographics that I have here, age range wise.
Hmm.
We're very popular with 28 to 44-year-olds. So more than likely, the people listening to this podcast
Uh-huh.
have kids, especially the 44 to
Right.
59. Not
Yeah.
doing bad in that area too, but
Hmm.
uh, if they have a kid who's eighth grade, seventh grade above,
Yes.
uh, tell them how the process works of getting connected with you, and then what you can provide.
Yeah. So really, the journey with me is kind of, it's I look at it as 3 to 4 years. And truly, if you've got middle school age students, I think one of the most common misconceptions, we're talking a lot about that, but then one of the most common misconceptions about college prep is that it doesn't start until junior year. Nothing could be further from the truth, especially now. That may have been what it was like for the 28 to 44-year-old set, but not anymore. I mean, truthfully, the sooner you start, if scholarships are a big priority for your family, the sooner you start the college prep journey and the scholarship search journey, the more likely you are to be able to get through college debt free or as close to it as possible. So it's really about kind of having those conversations, even as early as like sixth, seventh grade, about what they're interested in, or what, even just certain assignments, really listening, actively listening to your kids and asking a lot of questions, being a detective about what their interests are so that you can kind of be the information gatherer and that you can kind of hold up the mirror and say, oh, well, you know, here's what you've told me you're most interested in. And then, you know, kind of planting those seeds early or working with someone like me to help start put those, you know, putting those connections together and looking for patterns and encouraging them to lean into what might end up being a passing interest. But look, they're going to be gathering information that's just as important about what they don't like as what they do like. And so that's, you know, the process of elimination on the way to that college application period is actually just as empowering as figuring out their purpose or passion.
Yeah, I'm so thankful to Lorianne for connecting me with
Like,
with you, especially the spot where we're at with Becton and her, you know, super intrigued by just getting into college to begin with.
yeah,
So yeah, MindiTrimble.com.
yes.
Definitely go check it out. We'll have the link in the episode that you're listening to. It'll be in the episode description. And you know, next thing I have for you is, you know, at the end of the day, when all is said and done, like, what do you want your legacy to be? Like, what do you want put on your tombstone?
Mm. On my tombstone, I wanted to say that you know, I lived to serve in the spirit of awareness and in a deep ocean of empathy for other people. I mean, that's really what I want to radiate out. So, awareness, service, and empathy are three really key values in my life.
I just thought of something.
Yes.
I asked this question to Earl Bailey, 'cause he's a musician.
Hmm.
I'm gonna ask you the same one because it stumped him a little bit.
Hmm.
What song or what lyric best describes you?
Oh, oh, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. That is a stumper. I don't know if I know a lyric off the top of my head that best describes me. Um,
You asked me before we recorded if I had anything to
yeah,
prep, and then this one just came to me. I'm like, I'm gonna feel bad asking this one.
yeah, you know, gosh, I think, you know, I don't, but see, it's funny, right? There is one song that's popping into my head, but
Yeah,
without looking at the, I don't know what the whole song is about, but I feel like, you know, I feel like a song about like an eccentric or quirky woman. I feel
yeah,
like I mean the one I'm thinking of is okay. This is so weird. Okay, this is it. I know this is strange, but Train, you know the song Meet Virginia? That's what popped into
yeah,
my head. And
yeah.
there's a lyric of like she doesn't own a dress, her hair is always a mess. Um Catch her something, but she won't confess. I don't know. I just feel like it's kind of like while I do feel like on a certain level that I'm the kind of person that like what you see is what you get, at least in a coaching way, I think that I also want to keep people on their toes and keep them guessing, like keep it interesting. You know, I want my students to kind of come to a session and be like, what am I going to get today from Mindy? So I feel like, yeah, that's not that's as best as I can come up with on the spot.
Spontaneity.
Yeah, spontaneity for sure.
Okay. What final comments do you have for our listeners?
Oh my goodness. I think final comments are just that, you know, just knowing that, you know, since it's the Shadows podcast, I would say that, you know, don't shy away from those dark spots in your life or from those points of pain. If you are aware that you're resisting something, um, you know, pry it open. It could be a little uncomfortable at first, but I really feel like that's where the light comes in, right? And that's where your gold ultimately is. It's like in the shadows. Sometimes the brightest light can be found there if you're
Good
willing to
plug.
look.
Yeah. That's so true though. Yeah, with you can't have that light without the darkness.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and it's where the best that's where we find some of the best college essay content, which is, what I love
Mm.
working on with students is finding their kind of wild and untamed stories and then figuring out how we can tell it in a way that feels good to them and helps get them where they want to go in the future.
Well, folks, if you or someone you know is even considering college, you need to check her out. You need to check the episode description. It doesn't hurt to look. The cool thing about your link is it's free to click on it and just browse around. So it
Yeah,
doesn't hurt you. So
absolutely.
go check it
Oh,
out.
yes. And actually, while we're here, so the other thing that I would love for you to do on my website, make sure you go to minditrimble.com/timeline. That'll be in the show notes too, because that is what's going to help you kind of plan your whole high school journey. So, especially if you've got middle school students, you get that, download it, check it out, and that way you can really hit the ground running the summer before ninth grade.
Okay. No, I'm
Yeah.
actually clicking that the second we get done recording this.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I give you all 4 years because even if you are, in 10th or 11th grade, you could kind of go back and look at ninth and
Yeah.
10th grade and incorporate some of that in now. And that, yeah, honestly, I feel like if you use the timeline and followed it to a T, you would, and you didn't need any help, you'd be great. You'd be sailing.
Well,
So that'll help
that's
you get through
awesome.
it. Mhm.
Said, where was this in 2000?
Right.
When I needed it. But no, this is amazing. I can't thank you enough. I'm so glad that I've made this connection with you. I don't say this about every single person that I have on here, or at least while I'm recording. I don't like pandering too much, but oh my gosh, this is one of my favorite connections. Just talking to you in general. I mean, not even talking about back then in college, but just in general. Uh, Super easy to connect with, folks. I'm telling you, if y'all get a chance to reach out to her, please do.
Thank you
Uh,
so much. No, it's been such a pleasure. And I feel the same way. I told Lorianne, thank you so much for introducing us because you're just so easy to talk to. And I love the kind of stuff that comes up when we talk. It's definitely, this is the most personal podcast I've ever, or the most personal I've ever been on a podcast. And so it's kind of nice to do
Yeah,
that.
even last time we talked, that could have been an episode just sitting there recording just what we conversed over last time.
Yeah.
And Laurie, God, she's amazing.
Yeah. She's so great. Have you
She is.
recorded with her yet?
I have.
Oh,
She
okay,
is
great.
phenomenal. I mean, just in general, still keep in contact with her, and uh, I can't say enough nice things about her. One of my favorite people I've connected with on here.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much and have a safe and easy move to
Yeah,
California.
absolutely.
I'll see you
And
when you get here.
folks, yeah, absolutely. Folks, we hope you've enjoyed this episode. Like we said at the top of this, if you get a chance, head over to Spotify, to Apple, or to theshadowspodcast.com. Made it very easy for you. You can head over there, leave us a review. Those reviews help so much with podcast and getting the word out there and spreading these messages out to people, because you never know, just like this episode, who may be listening to this and how it may help them or others. So definitely go out there. We encourage you not just to leave a review, but I like to ask our listeners, leave a review as to what was your favorite episode and why, like what really resonated with you. We greatly appreciate that. Until next week, we will see you on another episode of the Shadows Podcast.